Okay, I'm going to be reading out the answers in an interview conducted with one Nancy Schoenberger in regard to a book she published titled Wayne and Ford, the Films, the Friendship, and the Forging of an American Hero. The interview was conducted or published in Portland Magazine 2018. Okay, this is Nancy's answers. I don't think of Ford as a European director, though he was influenced by the German expressionists, especially F.W. Murnau and Nosferatu, as seen in his use of dramatic lighting and fog in The Informer and elsewhere. Like all artists, he was a great borrower. He took what he needed and made it his own, rather than bringing the Western along from a mostly matinee shoot-'em-up for kids to a vehicle for grown-up themes. He pioneered a quintessentially American art form. You draw an interesting comparison between John Huston's The Misfits, written by Arthur Miller, and The Searchers. I haven't seen The Misfits in a long while, and I don't know if Huston or Miller had Ford's film in mind, but both have an autumnal feel, the end of the wildness of the West, a theme Ford also explores in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. The only things really wild in The Misfits are the Mustangs, and as I recall, there's a feeling that the characters are already all used up. Ethan Edwards, who represents that wildness in The Searchers, is out of place and nearly out of time as the West increasingly belongs to the homesteaders, the farmers, the ranchers. Yes, it's a powerful and influential image, seen most recently in the 2017 Western Hostiles, which I have yet to see, but in the trailer it shows a cowboy framed in just the same way. I suggest that Ford may have borrowed the image from Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger's wonderful 1945 film I Know Where I'm Going, where the heroine, Wendy Hiller, is twice framed in doorways, signifying life-changing decisions. That's purely speculation on my part, and come to think of it, we see a powerful threshold image in Stagecoach, released in 1939. Regarding the echoes of working-class Portland, my book was limited to the Ford Wayne westerns, so I don't really explore How Green Was My Valley or The Quiet Man, but Ford once said that the Welsh setting for Valley could have stood in for any Irish town, and of course, The Quiet Man reflects his fascination and pride in his Irish immigrant roots. The protagonist, Sean Thornton, a boxer played by John Wayne, is an alter ego for Ford, Sean being an Irish equivalent of John. Ford did love boxers, and that's part of the appeal of Victor McLaglen, who won an Oscar for The Informer, and who then appeared in mostly comic roles in Ford's Cavalry Trio. Clearly there was a love of the gusto and camaraderie in saloons, preferably frequented by Irish and Irish immigrants, which he grew up with in Portland, where his father owned a bar. Regarding Tarantino's remarks and the idea of Ford as a racist, I think the opposite is also true. Though the Apaches and Comanches and other marauding tribes of Native Americans are conveniently used in his early westerns, especially Stagecoach, as generic enemies to be slaughtered, he came to regret his depiction of Indian people. His late western, Cheyenne Autumn, told a tale from the point of view of the Cheyenne Nation, showing their mistreatment by the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs. "I've killed more Indians than Custer. This is their side," he said about the film. He was probably sensitized by working with the Navajos on their reservation in Monument Valley. He came to respect and even love the Navajo people, using them as extras and paying them handsomely, which helped them weather some brutal winters. He was proud of his friendship with them. In Rio Grande, though the Indians are adversaries, Ford takes pains to show some of their rituals and customs in an accurate light. Even earlier in his great silent film The Iron Horse, though he depicts the Indians as enemies of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, in one scene he humanizes an Indian brave by showing a dog lying his head on a slain warrior mourning his death. Ford was also proud of the fact that he was among the first directors to give an African-American actor, the wonderful Woody Strode, a lead role in a major American film, Sergeant Rutledge. The movie's plot, a black Buffalo soldier in the U.S. cavalry wrongfully accused of the rape and murder of a white girl, was very much ahead of its time. Rutledge flees knowing he won't get a fair trial because of his race. A student of American history, Ford schools us on the black cavalry officer. Congress created the Buffalo Soldiers Cavalry Unit after the end of the Civil War in recognition that most black soldiers had no home to return to after the war. In the movie, Rutledge realizes that his fellow cavalry soldiers are the only home he knows, hence he returns to stand trial. Regarding Ford and Wayne tweaking the conventions of what a man is today, I think Ford, having grown up with brothers he idolized in a rough and tumble world of boxers, drinkers, and roustabouts, found his deepest theme in male camaraderie. Especially in the military, one of the few places where men can express their love for other men, but he was concerned with men acting heroically, thus the most macho guy was not always the most heroic. McLaglen often presented the comic side of blustery masculinity. Ford brought out Wayne's tenderness as well as his toughness, especially in Stagecoach. Among the westerns, the prostitute Dallas, Claire Trevor in Stagecoach, breaks your heart with her humanity and her yearning. She's a fully realized character, as is Maureen O'Hara in Fort Apache, fighting to save her young son from combat in the Indian Wars, warring with her estranged husband, played by Wayne, of course, whom she still loves. I'd say out on location in stark Monument Valley, listening to the coyotes in the distance heard over the strains of Danny Borzage playing We Shall Gather at the River on his accordion, his cast and crew around him, the studio Mongols hundreds of miles away, and thus the studio moguls, hundreds of miles away, and thus non-interfering, the crepuscular light bouncing off the rock formations in the distance, or aboard his yacht, the Arana, with his buddies John Wayne and Ward Bond, fishing and drinking. I think Ford did try to grapple with the idea of what constituted heroic action, mostly in men but also in women, and what could save men from what I call testosterone poisoning, though he would never have used that term. He loved the company of masculine men, but he knew a bully when he saw one. Ethan Edwards is one of his most challenging figures in that he is a bully, a racist, an example of toxic masculinity, but he is humanized at the end of the movie when he changes his entire direction. I won't give away the ending for those who have not yet seen this great film. In a sense, for whatever reason as it's not spelled out, Edwards/Wayne admits he has been fundamentally wrong and offers for his actions a life-changing apology, but it comes too late for him and he's cast out of paradise.